Next I'm going to work problem 18a, which again you're going to have to bear with my sketches, which are not real neat. 18 says find the domain and range of each of the following relations whose graph is shown and use interval notation to name them. So to help, since I know my drawing is not real perfect, I just named the coordinates of each of those endpoints or each of those vertices of that triangle. This one is at -3, 0. This one is at 1, 3, a little hard to see there, and this one is at 3, -2. And since you're looking left to right for domain and bottom to top for range, it's important that you can tell exactly what those endpoints are. It's much clearer on the graph that you have on your review sheet, so you might want to refer to that as I'm discussing it. So my domain here, again, I just said was where you're going from left to right. Your domain is your x values, so I want to name them from left to right, so therefore I'm going to find the leftmost spot on my graph. That leftmost spot is right here, and that x value is -3. And if you can see, it looks like it goes all the way to -3, so -3 is included in that domain, which if I'm using interval notation means I'm going to use a bracket to show that that endpoint is included. And now I'm looking to the rightmost spot of my graph. That spot is 1, 3. That spot is 3, -2, this vertex. So that means my rightmost part of my graph is at +3. There's nothing to the right of that that's included in that graph. So 3 is the end of that domain, and again, since that endpoint is included, the domain of that graph is -3, +3. Now to find the range of that, I look from the bottom of my graph up, because I always name my domain and my range in order from the least to the greatest. So range is my y values. I start at the bottom up, so there's the beginning point that shows in my graph from the bottom to the top, and that y value is -2, and it is included. So my range is -2, and then I have to see how high up my graph or on my y-axis I go, and my uppermost y value for this graph would be at that point right there, and that y value is 3, so 3 is the end of that range. So that's using interval notation. My domain goes from -3 to +3, including those endpoints, which is indicated by the bracket, and my range is -2 to +3. Again, both endpoints are included here and here, so the brackets indicate the endpoints are included. On B, my domain, again looking from the left to the right, since this has an arrow indicating this is going infinitely in that direction, I'm going infinitely in the negative direction, which means my beginning point as I look at it from left to right must be -infinity if it's going infinitely in that direction. And now, -infinity can't be included as an endpoint, because if you say, for instance, there is the endpoint and I'm including it, well, there's another place to the left of that. Infinity goes on forever in that direction. So an endpoint of infinity can't be included. So when it's not included, I use parentheses. And now I want to go to where it ends as I look to the right. And it ends right here. The graph ends here. And that solid dot there tells me that that endpoint is included. If I had an open circle there, then the endpoint would not be included. But it's a closed circle that is at the positive number 2, that endpoint is included, so I have a bracket. Again, parentheses when your endpoint is not included. Anytime you have infinity as one of your endpoints, there's always a parentheses next to it, and 2 is included. So as I looked left to right, this graph starts way back here at -infinity and it ends at +2. That's my domain. My range, again, I look from the bottom to the top, and I have to figure out where this is on my y-axis. It's at 0, and 0 is included because of that closed circle. So my starting point for my range as I go from the bottom up is that point right here at y is 0, and it ends, again, if you notice this is continually going to the left, but it's also very slowly moving in that direction up. So that means as I move up infinitely, my endpoint for my range is positive infinity, and again, infinity has a parentheses next to it. So the difference between the bracket and the parentheses is whether or not your endpoints are included. On this graph, all of those endpoints are part of the graph, so I used brackets all the way through. Here, in the directions where I'm going to infinity, infinity has a parentheses next to it. There you go.